Welcome back, everybody, to the Orange Bloods CruitCast. As you can see, the CruitCast there at the bottom. I'm your host, Jason Suchomel, joined by my co-host, Cole Patterson, back for another edition. Cole, is this 4 in a row? 4 weeks in a row, man? We're on fire, aren't we, dude? So that's pretty good for us.
Pretty consistent. You know, we're staying true to our word now.
Yeah, it only took us about 9 months, but we're finally staying true to our word. Exactly. Better late than never. First off, let's thank our partners at Prime Shrimp for sponsoring this CruitCast. PrimeShrimp.com. You see the graphic up at the top. $20 off your first order. If you haven't tried it, what are you waiting for, man? It's promo code is Orange Bloods. I actually had some more Prime Shrimp, Cole. I think it was on Tuesday. I did the Cajun boil, and it was fantastic. And I had to fight my son off. He and I were fighting over to eat the shrimp, but I think I got more than him. So just can't speak highly enough of it, man. Great food, easy to cook, takes 4 minutes, really no cleanup at all. So go to primeshrimp.com, promo code OrangeBloods, get $20 off your first order. You won't regret it. Also, hey, like the podcast, subscribe to the channel, do those things that help us and help us get those numbers up. So, Cole, we got a few things we want to talk about today. Nowhere else to really start other than Arch Manning. He's a guy we could literally talk about every week on every CruitCast, and people would probably still want to hear about him. So I'm going to let you kind of give the summary. I'm going to let you talk a little bit more. You got some moving parts in the quarterback dominoes, Eli Holstein, of course, to Alabama, but you kind of lay out the foundation for us. And I haven't even talked to you about it yet, so I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are after this week's developments.
Yeah, I mean, it can't be a bad thing if you're Texas, see Eli Holstein go to Alabama, kind of takes Alabama out of the running. Maybe not officially yet. It sounds like he's still going to visit, planning to do that here in June. So Alabama's still in the race, but I mean, it can't hurt Texas at all that Alabama took a commitment. There's kind of speculation there, waiting to see what Arch wanted to do, but maybe Eli kind of forced their hand a bit, or maybe they just felt like they needed to go ahead and get that secure. But on the surface, it just seems like a Texas and Georgia battle. He's had to visit all three of those schools, including Alabama, in June. But yeah, Texas school that he's always been really high on. I think he knows everything he needs to know about Sarkisian and the staff. He's just really using these visits to learn a little bit more about how he fit in, what his first couple seasons looked like if he'd have to redshirt, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Texas is right there. I think this is great news that Arch he may not have eliminated Alabama officially, but at least on the surface, it looks like that it's going to come down to those two teams. So Texas is in a great spot, and they're going to get an official visit here in a couple weeks and lay out the red carpet, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think he and Holstein are visiting Alabama. I think it's the same weekend. So I don't know how Alabama is going to kind of juggle that. That'll be interesting. But, he hasn't officially eliminated Alabama, but the odds of him and Holstein going, Holstein's a Rivals 100 quarterback. He's an elite quarterback. The odds of both of those guys going to Alabama, I think, are pretty slim. I'm kind of kicking myself. If I go back and look at my Q&As that I've done from seriously 6 months ago, I've always said, hey, I think it's going to be Texas or Georgia. And I thought Alabama was there, on the fringe, and you had some flirtations with Ole Miss, of course. I don't remember what other schools. There were a handful of them for a while, but I always have said, hey, I'm pretty sure it'll be Texas or Georgia. That's what I'd always heard from kind of grapevine talk. You don't hear that directly from Arch. Arch is pretty smart. He's not going to do those kind of comments, but people that have talked to Arch or spent time with Arch when he was in Austin always thought Texas or Georgia. So I wish I would have stuck my neck out a little further and maybe proclaimed that a little more strongly, because it certainly looks like that's coming to fruition. But unlike you, Cole, I like Texas's position here. In the biggest reason I say that, someone asked me, or several people asked me on my Q&A that I just posted on Orange Bloods last night, how do I handicap the Arch race? I said, nothing's changed for me. This basically, I think, takes Alabama out of the mix for the most part. But I don't think that really changes the eventual outcome, because I always thought it was going to be Texas or Georgia. And I still favor Texas, because I think if he wanted to go to Georgia, if he knew he wanted to go to Georgia, what else does he need to see, man? They just won a national championship. He's seen their offense. He knows their coordinators. I don't know what else he needs to see as my dogs go crazy. Cole, I mean, how would you handicap it in terms of a percentage with Texas?
Yeah, that's the thing. He knows everything he needs to know about Georgia. They've put a winning product on the field. They can surround him with a ton of talent. But for whatever reason, he still hasn't committed there. He hasn't committed anywhere to be fair. Yeah, I think it's going to come down to those two schools for sure. I'd probably give Texas. I think it's the slightest of edges right now. I think Georgia's still a factor there, and like he loves the town. They have the proven track record. His family knows he's going to be developed there. All of that. I think Texas I'd probably put it in the 55% range. I think it's pretty close to a 50-50 battle. I just think the relationships he has with Steve Sarkisian, AJ Milwee, even some of the recruits that Texas is recruiting, like a Jonte Cook or Ruben Owens. Some of the guys already in the program, like Michael Taft. I think he has so many great relationships. He loves Austin. I remember last year, I guess it was October, he told me that Austin kind of reminded him of New Orleans. So Texas has a lot, to sell to him, and I think they do have a slight edge. I don't think the move to the SEC hurts them whatsoever. Like I think that's a pretty big selling point as well. Even if it doesn't happen next year, it's going to happen when he's in college. He gets it. If he has to sit behind Quinn Ewers, I don't think that's a huge deal to him. Lets him, prepare for college. I think there's just so much going for Texas that I'm not going to say they have to mess it up to ruin it, but I think Georgia would have to do a lot to overcome it. But like I said, I think it is somewhat close to a 50-50 battle.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like people ask about the timing on it. Man, I don't know. I mean, there were reports that he was going to commit spring of last year and then the summer and then last fall. And I mean, people just keep reporting this stuff and it ends up being wrong and it just keeps getting pushed back. We've kind of stuck to our,
They'll be right eventually.
Exactly. That's the only one anyone will remember. But we've stuck to our guns saying, hey, we thought he was going to probably take it to the summer or maybe into the fall. That's what Anwar Richardson, our coworker at Orange Bloods, his sources told him a while back, like, hey, man, this thing could go all the way till December. I don't think that's going to happen. But clearly he's taken more time than people think. And in my mind, I just keep thinking, okay, he wants to see something from Texas that gives him a reason to commit. Maybe that's better play on the field. Maybe, as you said, Cole, maybe it's finalizing a date on when Texas will join the SEC. I don't know, but it feels like he wants to go to Texas. If I'm just totally reading the tea leaves, trying to read the tea leaves, he just wants to go to Texas, but he needs a couple other things answered. Maybe it's improved play on the field coming off a 5-7 season. He's got Georgia on the 3rd, June 3rd, Alabama June 10th, Texas on the 17th. Texas gets the last visit. Never a bad thing to get the last visit. You get to make the last impression. Would he possibly decide in July? Wouldn't shock me at all. Or maybe he waits into the fall so he can watch a month or so of games to see how Texas is performing, see if they've performed better, see if the offense looks better. I don't know, but I think I'm kind of like you. I think if Texas doesn't quote unquote screw it up, I think the Longhorns end up winning this race. If Texas does, let's transition a little bit, Cole. You just saw Johntay Cook, the standout receiver from DeSoto. Obviously, if Texas gets Arch, their chances with Jonte shoot through the roof. You just talked to Jonte recently, so your thoughts on Jonte after seeing him in person?
Yeah, I saw him for their spring game last week. We'll have an update on Orange Bloods and everything like that. Yeah, he wouldn't tip his hand much at all as far as the decision goes. We've all asked him about his thoughts on Texas. There's only so much you can ask him over and over again. He says the same message, same communication with the staff. He really likes Sarkisian, Brendan Marion. He still talks with Xavier Worthy, all of those guys. He's actually going to officially visit Oregon, Michigan, and Florida in June. He might go take a visit to Jackson State, who he included his top 5. He said he has some family connections there. But we've been saying all along, I think it's going to come down to Texas and Texas A&M. He said he plans to visit both of those schools as well. He wouldn't confirm if it's an official visit or what, but he did say he plans to at least get on campus at both those schools. And he really just said that he'll make a decision whenever the time's right. He said it Could happen in the summer. It could happen during the season. He wouldn't pin anything down. And that's kind of, par for the course for Jonte, expected and unexpected with him. But I like where Texas sits with them, especially if they do close with Arch. If they close with Arch, I see a hard time. I think it's pretty much a done. I wouldn't say done deal, but pretty close to a done deal that Jonte joins him in Austin, and they have a pretty good relationship. But I think even without Arch, I think Texas is in a pretty good spot, and he likes everything Texas is selling him. He has great relationships, kind of like Arch with other recruits, a lot of players in the program already. But yeah, he wouldn't tip his hand, but I do think it's going to be an in-state battle, and to the end. I was talking with somebody else actually that we were saying that even if he commits, say June, could go all the way to signing day just with Jonte. So, but right now I think Texas is in a great spot for him.
Yeah, listen, if he decides in June, and I've heard that's a possibility, but then he also has visits scheduled for June. I think maybe going to July. So who knows? But that's going to be a recruitment wherever he winds up, whenever he makes a decision. You're going to have to continue to recruit him as an uncommitted player all the way till signing day. I mean, Jonte's a great kid. You and I both love him. We both love talking to him. He's always fun to talk to, but he enjoys the process a little bit, and I don't think he minds the attention that he gets with it. So I could see some fireworks or some suspenseful moments after he makes a decision. But I'm like you, Cole. I mean, and we're not alone in thinking this. We've all thought this is going to be a Texas and Texas A&M battle in the end. Oregon's always intriguing. Michigan, Florida, those are great programs he's going to go visit. But I just don't envision Jonte Cook going that far away from home in the end. I think it comes down to Texas and Texas A&M. If Texas gets Arch, I think Texas is probably 80% on Jonte. If Texas doesn't get Arch, I still think Texas is probably a little over 50% to get Jonte. So, like you, I like Texas's chances. Let's talk about one more big-time player you saw this week, Malik Muhammad, the DB from South Oak Cliff. He visited Texas 2 weekends ago, came in for a multi-day visit. You went out and saw him, got to kind of catch up with him at his spring game. He's another guy who doesn't tip his hand a lot when he talks about these schools. Every time I've talked to him, he always talks about Texas, how much he likes them, but I've just always got the impression that just kind of the vibe I get and the body language and the way he answers questions, I think Texas was towards the bottom of his what was it, a top 7 or 8 he released? I can't remember how many schools
top
were.
6.
So was it 6? Okay. I always thought Texas was like probably towards the bottom of that, maybe even at the bottom of that. I think what I'm hearing after this most recent visit, just kind of some scuttlebutt, I think Texas really shot up the ranks there. Certainly not in the top. I still think Texas A&M, Alabama, but I think Texas is within striking distance now. But let's get your thoughts. You talked to him in person. You got to kind of see him and read his face and read his body language. Your thoughts on Malik Muhammad after seeing him?
Yeah, he's another guy who likes to place, some things close to the vest. He doesn't want to tip his hand too much. But he was in Austin earlier this month. He was kind of decked out in Texas stuff for a spring game. He was wearing a sleeve. He was wearing some Texas gloves, which I thought was pretty interesting. Maybe not a huge sign, but he obviously enjoyed the gear and everything like that. How could you not? But he talking to him about his visit. He wouldn't say too much about it, but he said that he was able to spend some time with the staff. He enjoyed being on campus. All of it's the same things he's already told me in the past about Texas, but I think it's always important for them to continue to get him on campus, be in front of him, see him face to face. I think the more they can do that, the better. Told me they want him in that nickel position role, which I think could suit him pretty well. He's really long, he's really athletic. Said he likes what his role would be in that defense. I think Texas is definitely in striking distance for sure. I think A&M and Alabama have kind of been the two constants for him for a while. He really likes Alabama a ton. He has a teammate, Javon Thomas, committed to A&M. But I think Texas has that latest visit has kind of moved them up in his mind. He's going to take some official visits. He's not sure of all 5 yet, but if Texas can land one of those OVs, then I think that could go a long way.
Yeah, and listen, you're not where you want to be if you're Texas, but you'll take it coming out of that visit that you kind of went almost as an afterthought in that top 6 to being a team that might be able to get him back for an official visit, and then you swing for the fences, and
Mhm.
who knows what might happen. We're on a bit of a time schedule here, so I want to just touch on one more guy, Cole, and
Yeah.
we'll put a bow on this one and be back early next week, or maybe sooner if news warrants it. But
Mhm.
Texas is hosting James Madison linebacker, grad transfer linebacker Diamante Tucker-Dorsey. I always got to get those names in the right order. Goes by Tuck. I'm just going to call him Tuck, but Diamante Tucker-Dorsey. He came in on Monday, started his official visit. He's leaving today. Checked around, talked to some people, chatted with Diamante a little bit, talked to Tuck a little bit. Great visit overall. He did visit Central Florida last weekend. Like I said, he's at Texas right now. He'll be leaving today. Doesn't have any other visits planned as of right now, and told me he wants to decide by the end of this week. So,
Okay.
when he and I were talking, he wouldn't tip his hand on Texas, Central Florida. He said he liked them both. I tried to play the game like, hey, man, off the record, would it be a good investment of my time to have a commitment story written? And he
Mhm.
wouldn't say. So, but he just said, man, I'm just going to tell you, I like Texas a lot, and they're really up there. So, you know, I don't know that I could confidently call Texas the leader over
Mhm.
Central Florida, but Texas has a lot to sell. And he talked about that. He and I talked about, a program like Texas. I mean, one of the biggest in college football
Yeah.
versus a smaller program in Central Florida, and the opportunities and exposure he would get at Texas. Those things are important to him, but it also is going to come down to, I think, playing time and where he feels like he can come in and make the biggest impact. He told me he's not decided. Okay, that's the official word, is he's not decided. He's going to go back home, talk to some family. His mom, his sister, and I think his brother came with him to Austin. So it was a whole family ordeal.
Yeah.
This should be a recruitment Texas should be able to win. You've got to be able to land
Mhm.
players over a school. With all due respect to Central Florida, Texas needs to be able to win these kinds of battles, but as of last night, there's still some indecision there for Diamante Tucker-Dorsey, but we should have our answer on that one by the end of the week. If we do, you know what? He's really accessible. If we do, maybe we'll get him on the CruitCast with us to kind of talk about his
Fun idea.
decision. Yeah. So that's it. We're on like everybody else. We're on Arch Watch. We're about to flip the calendar to June.
Mhm.
And then all hell breaks loose with official visits. It's going to be a crazy month of June. So we'll have a
Mhm.
lot to talk about in the coming weeks. So that's our show for today. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Thanks again to our sponsors, Prime Shrimp. Go to primeshrimp.com, enter that promo code OrangeBloods, get $20 off your first order. It's a money back guarantee. You're not going to need it though, man, because you're going to love it. The
It's
quality,
really
the
good.
simplicity. Yeah, it's fantastic, man. So, and everybody, again, please like the CruitCast, subscribe to the OB channel. That helps us out as well. But we appreciate everybody watching, and we will be back to talk to everyone soon. Take care.